Wake that ass up. Early in the morning. The Breakfast Club.
Morning, everybody. It's DJ NV, Angela Yee, Charlamagne the God. We are the Breakfast Club. Now, we got some special guests with us this morning.
Yes, indeed.
Can you guys please introduce yourself? Because I don't want to mess up anybody's name. I got the Angela name right, but that's about it right now.
I'll go first. My name is Michelle Kenny, and I'm the mother of Antwon Rose II.
Good morning, Michelle.
Good morning, Michelle.
ALLISA Finley. I am the sister of Botham.
Good morning, Elisa.
Good morning. Just closer to the mic, too. Just pull that mic closer to you. There you go.
Okay.
Angela Henry. I am DJ Henry's mom.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm Dan Henry, DJ Henry's dad.
Dan and Angela, good morning.
Good morning, guys.
Sadly, you can hear what all of them have in common. Who wants to start? I don't know. I don't even know where we begin on a
It's
conversation.
the responsibility
like
program. So tell us about that and why you guys are here and what you guys are promoting to help try to talk to people.
Yeah, I mean, we do have this in common, and we're learning more about one another's brother and sons, and we realize that there's a lot of similarities in how we raised them, how we parented them, how we sistered them, and yet they were still taken unlawfully. And so we're trying to come together with other people who are like-minded in this space to really try to figure out how to make some constructive change. And you can't argue that there was an injustice done to all of us, but sometimes people see these in isolation and they put them in a compartment. And what we're trying to do now is raise their awareness that this is happening all too often to men of promise, and we need to do something constructive about it together to make a difference.
Maybe I'm assuming people know. No,
the people don't
yes.
know. So explain what happened with your son. Yeah,
yes,
everybody
they were all killed by police officers. Yes.
Correct.
You want to start?
Now, what happened with your son? I know he was, what you explain.
Our son was at a homecoming game with one of his best friends. He was playing against one of his best friends. They all went out together after the football game, and he was waiting in the fire lane for some of his friends to come out, and he was asked to move by one police officer, and another police officer shot him through the window, assuming that he was trying to flee something.
And the police had changed their story, right? They lied. They admittedly lied.
They lied, and so we're talking about DJ Henry, our son. So what happened is that this person shot him. He wasn't shot by police. He was shot by a guy named Aaron Hess, who happened to be a police officer. I want to make that clear. He was shot by Aaron Hess, unlawfully. There was another police officer on the scene behind him in the roadway who shot at Aaron Hess because he was trying to protect our son because he saw Aaron Hess as the only threat. And so
was he dressed up in uniform?
He was in uniform. He was in uniform. The guy who shot at Aaron Hess was in full uniform. He shot at him thinking that he was trying to hurt our son.
Was Aaron in uniform?
He was in partial uniform. No, he really wasn't. He wasn't. He was in a black thing with his jacket on, but he wasn't even supposed to be there. So he had no business getting involved, and he did everything wrong. And yet, when the police had two police officers to choose from, they chose to protect Aaron Hess. And unfortunately for us and for Ronald Beckley, who did everything right, they told him he had to go get a lawyer and essentially ostracized him.
In that moment, how did it make you feel about the police? Because you had one police who was doing the wrong thing in that situation, but then you had another police officer who was protecting him. So how did that make y'all feel about police in general?
I don't have a general feeling. I have a specific one.
Okay.
So to me, look, what Aaron Hess did was wrong just by rule of law. So I have an issue with Aaron Hess. I applaud the courage of Ronald Beckley because he went against his department. His lieutenant tried to change his story. He entered a false narrative, which to your point is why there ended up being an apology, because they tried to turn DJ into a villain. And this guy said, no, I was there. I saw it. He was doing everything right. I tried to protect that kid.
Wow.
And yet they hid that from the public until we pushed and made it become public.
Now, Michelle Kenny, what happened with your son?
My son was 17 years old, front seat passenger of a car that was stopped on a traffic stop.
That's closer to the mic so they can hear you.
He was 17. He was involved in a traffic stop that he ran from the vehicle and was shot 3 times in the back. It was later proven that my son, not only did he not have a firearm, the officer at the time admitted that he should not have shot my son. And shortly after that, we found out that not only was my son innocent of any charges, he was not involved in any crimes at all. And our local district attorney released a statement saying that my son had nothing to do with anything illegal.
Ms. Finley?
My brother Botham was in his apartment Thursday night watching football, eating ice cream, and Amber Geiger, police officer, walked in claiming she thought it was her apartment and thought it was a burglary in progress. Entered his apartment, shot him through the heart, and killed him.
What has the healing process been like since losing your loved ones? Like, do y'all lean on each other for support?
I actually talked to Allissa's mom, Allison, on a regular, and talked to her throughout her trial, because I knew what that experience was and how hurtful and harmful it could be to your mental state. So for me, it's been a struggle. And every time I talk to one of them, I find out it's a struggle from them as well. This isn't easy at all.
For me, I know I've been leaning on other sisters who has gone through this, because I know when you have an incident like this where your loved one is killed by a police officer, the media and everyone tend to look for the mom and support the mom, and it's all about the mom. So I've been leaning on sisters, like the sisters of Sandra Bland, Tatiana Jefferson, Delron Small. We all get together. Terrence Crutcher, his sister. We all text and stay in contact, and if we need to vent, we let it out. So we support each other.
How do you respond when people ask about forgiveness? I know in particular, Alyssa, it was a big deal for you with your brother with forgiveness. What do you have to say when people go through something like this and they have to deal with the question of forgiveness?
Well, I know because my brother at the end of the trial, he forgave Amber Geiger for killing our brother. I say to that, I commend him. I'm sure it wasn't easy for him to do something like that. I personally haven't forgiven her, but I respect his decision, and I hope one day I could get to a point where I'm at the end of my grieving stage. I'm not there yet, but I respect his decision.
Do you feel like her punishment was just?
No, I think 10 years was a slap on the wrist. I was expecting 15. My mom was expecting life. So when we heard 10 years, I honestly felt like I was burying my brother all over again, because it hurt real bad to hear 10 years.
I mean, you're the rare case where the cop got any time whatsoever. Usually cops get off, period.
Yeah.
And the NFL did release something today, right?
Yes.
So what did they say?
What was the PSA about?
They released the PSA today, just telling Botham's story, what he's like, what it has been for us going through losing him. I hope this PSA can reach the hearts of all those who feel like this will never be me. I hope it can reach the hearts of police officers and their families, so that in the future, if they're ever faced with a Black person, they think first before they shoot.
So Angela, DANROY, Michelle, how do you guys deal with the issue of forgiveness?
I don't know what forgiveness would look like in our instance.
Right.
I don't think I'm there, but the healing part, it's a daily struggle, because there's moments when you think that you can just get through the day and everything is great, and then there's a valley on the other side, and then you're back down on your knees crying. And I think acknowledging those moments and letting them come when they do come, and embracing them and recognizing that this is part of the process. I don't believe that you ever reach a point where you say, okay, I'm done. I'm done grieving. I've reached a safe place. I don't think that ever happens, especially when a part of you is no longer there. So it's a daily struggle.
Now let's talk about the responsibility program and what you guys are linked up with Rock Nation and the NFL. How does that program help other people?
Well, what we hope is through the telling of our son and brother's life story through these PSAs, that again we're raising some awareness and we get the right people engaged around the table to have constructive conversation about this, so we can actually start making some real change. I mean, the NFL has big resource. Rock Nation has good reach, and I think now people are starting to hear these back to back to back. The Antwon Bolden's story, his cousin's story. They're starting to see that these things are happening all over the country. It's not just in their isolated community. They can't just put this in a little small compartment. These kids weren't doing anything wrong. These aren't bad people, and they're going to have to wake up. And we hope that by putting this in their face in a really constructive way, it'll make some people start to think about, create cognitive dissonance. Like, wait a minute, something may actually be wrong here.
Do these white people care though? That's what I often wonder.
For me, I'm not really sure. We can go back to the forgiveness question. I can't get there because they didn't show any remorse.
Right.
He nor his family have ever said, I'm sorry. And we all know in a court of law, saying I'm sorry doesn't mean you're guilty.
Correct.
So I've never gotten that. My family has always been the one to be kind and courteous, even during the trial. So do they care? I'm not really sure. But am I willing to do everything in my power, along with Rock Nation and the NFL, to let them at least hear my story? Absolutely.
And I don't know how we know if they care.
Yeah.
I don't know how we know, right? So we have to be in their face. We have to keep presenting these as real issues, real people, real stories. We've sacrificed a lot. We've lost these men. They're gone. Their promise has been wiped out, right? So we have to try to live their promise for them. And whether they listen to us or not, they're gonna need to hear what we're saying, because ultimately, at the end of the day, it's not just about white people. It's about all people, because we sometimes prejudge police.
Right.
And we say things like, well, these police are all bad. Well, in the case of our son, this guy tried to save our son.
Right.
So it isn't that simplistic in either direction. We have to keep having the conversation about it.
And the worst part is, it seems like there can be video, witnesses, and all of that, and there's still no repercussions for police officers who wrongfully kill people.
Correct.
Yeah.
So how do you change that?
That's what we're trying to do. That's what we're trying to do.
That's why we're here.
Better training.
Yeah.
They say, the part of the NFL partnership is they say communication is the key message. So what exactly are we trying to communicate?
I mean, for me, listen, if it's up to me, I want people to not prejudge, right? Don't prejudge. Don't prejudge the kid.
Right.
Don't victimize the person who has been wrongfully murdered. And don't prejudge police, all police. If one guy does something bad and it takes the life of a good kid, then that person should be held accountable. I don't care if they're wearing a badge or not, because if you take the badge off, everybody says that's murder. When you put the badge on, people start struggling with it, right? Because there's not an effective way for police officers to be held accountable. They can't really apologize, because if they apologize, they get convicted. Their PBAs, their police benevolent associations, won't let them apologize. Even if they want to say sorry, they can't say sorry. And whether they look like us or they don't look like us, we got to change that so that there's an effective way to hold people accountable, irrespective of whether they're wearing a badge or not.
I want to get back to the point where you said, do you think white people care? So I have half of my family is white, and I can tell you that they have gone to battle for us in the moments when we couldn't. They were out there making sure that our son's name wasn't forgotten, and they have gone ahead of us to try to make a trail. So I know at least my side of the family really cares.
I
Well,
also
not- they
think
won't
that
all
was,
care.
I'm
Yeah.
sorry. I think that was the misconception about Antwon as well. The first thing that came out in the media is that Antwon was black. He was a black kid. And based on his skin color and what America defines as a black kid, Antwon was a black kid. But in all honesty, Antwon's mother is biracial. So when you see me, normally you see my mother standing next to me. My family as well were there when I couldn't be there. They were at the protests. They were at the marches, introducing themselves. They did it when I couldn't. So some white folks do care.
Yeah.
When a situation like that happens, in the case of Antwon, the cops were acquitted. Like, did you expect that? Like, did you even think that you was going to get justice?
This is the first time I'm ever going to admit this in public. So it's a little uncomfortable, but truth, not at all. Not at all. The public did. My family was praying, but I have a background of over a decade working with law enforcement. My father's been a cop for 35 years. So therefore, no.
You knew what
I
it was.
never thought he would be convicted. I never once was ever convinced at all, in the slightest, that he was convicted. He would be convicted. As a matter of fact, he walked out the courtroom before I did.
Wow. So that makes the healing process even more difficult.
A little bit harder. Wow. But that's why we're here.
Well, we thank you guys for sharing.
And what can
this
people
story.
do to actually partake in the responsibility program? Where can people go? Where can they see everything? How can they participate?
I believe all of the videos will be up on Rock Nation's site
And the NFL.
and the NFL, the Players Coalition. And I think sharing it would be, we have such a reach with social media. The more people that share these, the better. And it touches more people and helps to open the eyes of more people.
Have a lot of families reached out to you guys as well since all of this is happening? You've shared your stories?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, for sure.
Yeah.
We're just praying that no one else has to call us.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's definitely going to happen, though. That's the sad part about it.
It is sad.
But it's a club that we don't need any more members.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's like, how do you even raise children or talk to your family members about dealing with the police now? What do you even say?
I have 3 young boys, and I think one of the hardest things I've had to do was to put them to sit down on the second day of school and explain to them that their uncle was killed by a police officer. My 11-year-old is scared right now of police officers. They all need to go to counseling. They're doing it, and I just don't know how to change that.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard, right? Because in the case of all 3 of these young men, nobody asked them anything.
Right.
So it's a little simplistic even sometimes to say when you get stopped, you have to do this, keep your hands here, do this, do that. They didn't get asked any questions. If they had been asked questions, they'd all still be here.
Yeah.
Sometimes you can answer those questions and still not be
still not
here.
be
here.
You know?
And it's difficult because Charlamagne has 3 and I have 5 kids, and it's one of my worst fears. And my daughter just FaceTimed me right now, and I can't wait to get out of here to see what's wrong because she should be in school right now. But those are the things that we often go for, and
Absolutely.
and it's two-sided. Like my dad is a police officer, retired, so I see his side. But my dad's first thing is when you get pulled over, you never trust a cop. Keep your mouth shut. Don't start an argument in that situation because you can't win in the street. These are the things that I have to tell my son, but it's scary. It's definitely scary. We appreciate you guys.
What can
for sharing the story.
concern? Hold on a second. What can concern Black parents do to protect their children, though?
Not sure. We had the conversations with our children. We told them, make sure that you don't show your hands, that you're very careful. I mean,
Law enforcement in our family. That's what I'm saying. These are recurring themes, right? And yet it still happened.
Right. Both of them in his own house.
Exactly. And both
Right.
knew his rights. He knew we had conversations about all these cases all the time. And I always say that it's not about just knowing your rights, because he knew his rights. I'm sure your son knew his rights, but they don't get an opportunity to express their rights, to practice their rights. It's like Botham, he was eating ice cream. What can you do?
Yeah.
All of these kids, though, had they have been given the opportunity to answer the questions, if you look at the common denominator between all of them would have been able to articulate exactly what they were doing at the time, had they have been able to answer those questions.
Yeah, and
so when you remove that right to just respond and respond with murder, it takes away all of those freedoms that they say are given to us.
And the other part that I will say, and it hurts me to even say this, but this is the reality that we live and that you're trying to avoid. What I tell kids now is be excellent. Be excellent. Because it may be your life, your legacy, that is what people use to define you. That may be the very thing that fights against the false narrative about you. And when they look back at all of these guys, you see that they were excellent. These guys had promise, were excellent.
But the media going to still try to villainize them regardless.
They're going to try to villainize it, but they leave a trail of excellence in their wake, and it's harder to do that when you leave a trail of excellence.
And that will refute one of the things that we had always talked about, because our son's favorite scripture was, no weapon formed against you will prosper, and you will refute every tongue that is against you. And so every time there was a lie or a false story put out there, his life and his legacy and the people that knew him was always able to refute that and say, no, that's not true. Let me tell you why. And I knew him and his teachers and his coaches and the bus driver And, anyone that came in contact with him knew him and knew his character. So they were able to speak to that. So be great, because you want someone else to be able to come us alongside you and say, no, I know him.
Right.
I know what he's about.
Yeah,
And don't believe that.
It was the same with both of them, because the media tried, but it was everyone rallied for him. It was Harding University. He went to a Christian university, and the people from Searcy, Arkansas, which is like all white town in Arkansas, they all stood up for him. So, and they knew him because of his character.
Was there any truth to the fact that he had a relationship with the police officer? And
No truth to that.
And they had never even met each other, you said.
Never met, didn't know each other, never crossed paths ever.
I'm glad that you're here, and I'm glad that Dan's here, because like you said, you always see the mothers on the front line, but you don't realize these people have sisters and they have brothers and aunts and uncles and fathers, like, and that's why I'm just glad that they see that a father cares about his son in that way.
Absolutely. In many ways, I'm a reflection of him, and I bear that burden not lightly. I have to be a reflection of him. I have to try to be a projection of his promise, and so people see what they've now snuffed out, what this guy Aaron has snuffed out because of his own carelessness.
Is it frustrating when the focus is on the moms a lot?
It frustrates me. I get it. It frustrates me because I feel like dads need to have a voice too, and we don't have. We just don't have a way of connecting. Certainly not one that I've connected into yet. And it'll be good if we did. I mean, I don't want other men in this fraternity, but there are men who are.
You should start a Fathers for the Movement.
Maybe.
Yeah, you got Michael Brown's father.
Yeah.
Trayvon Martin's dad.
Yeah, even though he didn't get killed by a police officer, but he still feels the effects of that.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, thank you guys again for joining us.
And how can they reach y'all?
How can they reach you guys?
ALLISA, you got a foundation?
Yes, we do have the Botham Foundation, and it's the bothamfoundation.org. We started this foundation to basically continue the work that Botham started on his own, to just continue his legacy.
And we have the DJDreamFund.org, and we too started this after following DJ's example. And what we do is we provide funding for children in Massachusetts so that they can continue to play sports, attend summer camp, all the things that he loved.
Right now I'm in discussions with Rock Nation to actually get funding for and begin the Antwon Rose II Foundation, because it's my intention to purchase a building right where Antwon was killed.
Wow.
Awesome.
And turn it into a community center.
That's powerful.
Salute to Rock Nation. Rock Nation doing the work. Y'all can say what y'all want about this NFL partnership. They doing the work.
Absolutely.
We're so grateful that they have not forgotten our children and our brother, that they remember their names and wanted to do something so impactful with the NFL. So we're honored that they chose us to be a part of it.
Yeah.
All right. Well, it's the Breakfast Club. Thank you guys for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for having us.